this is Vicky with Vicky's Tigger Tales, where we like to talk, swap, and unbox all things Disney. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. It is something that I thought kind of needed to be not necessarily addressed, but something that I have actually kind of thought that this may be beneficial, just to kind of give some guidelines. So today we're going to be talking about swaps, and we're going to be talking about like how to find them, what you're kind of expected being involved in a swap, and from like start to finish. So we'll just get right on into it. First off, one of the biggest questions that I get is, how do you find them? And the very first swap that I actually was involved in, I found on an Instagram post where the channel that was hosting it posted it on Instagram, and then it had a Google form to fill out, send your email, and then they contacted you and let you know the guidelines. So that was my very absolute first swap that I was ever involved in. And it was a lot of fun. It was a book exchange. So it was just like a book and book accoutrement, so to speak, that you could exchange. And it was a lot of fun. From there, it took me a while to get into my next one. And it was just kind of asking around if there was any availability in certain people that I had started talking to and had more of a connection and friendship with. And so the second SWATs actually were people that I actually contacted. And but the other ways that I have seen people get involved in swaps were if they're already in a swap and someone will post another one. If you're interested, here's what's coming up. I post mine on Instagram, as well as send out private message invitations. So on Instagram, you'll see a thumbnail sometimes with the requirements of the swap, and if you're interested, you comment or you DM the person down below, or that's listed. Those are how I have found the ones that I've been involved in, if I haven't been asked personally. So what happens after you get into a swap and you say yes? First and foremost, you need to remember, a swap is a commitment. From start to finish, it is this commitment from being engaged in the chat to post date, and then sometimes even beyond. So remember that when you say yes to something, you are saying yes to the host and to eventually the person that's assigned to you. So first we'll start off with what happens next is usually you're invited to start to be engaged in an Instagram chat where everyone else that's going to be involved in it is also chatting and being, like contacting each other and getting to know each other. I usually post a welcome, like, hey everyone, how's it going? And that way we get to know each other. But you also can push in the chat itself. You can push the little eye with a circle around it to see who's involved in it, or just watch who posts in the chat. You want to continue to be engaging throughout the life of the chat. Sometimes chats are started months before a swap actually posts. So it's a lot of fun to get to know the person and people that are involved in it as well. It's a great way to find out things about, people that you thought maybe are interesting and maybe you would want to be including in your circle. So that is one way to go ahead and just start. You also want to be consistent with your posting. If you're asked to something, asked about something that, maybe they're asking for preferences or expound on this, or hey, how's everybody feel about this in the chat? Make sure that you're answering those questions, because sometimes they might have, like the host or someone else might have something that they want to do for their person, but don't want, especially if it's a secret swap, but don't want to actually directly ask that person. Now, there's two different ways that you're going to have your partner. Either you're assigned a name to partner up with someone, so you do have the chance to get to know them throughout the life of the swap, or it could be a secret swap where you have someone that's going to be buying for you, you're going to be buying for somebody else, you don't know each other until the box comes and you open the card. So the chat itself is actually set up for getting to know each other, kind of sharing your preferences, whether or not there are things that you do or don't want. Sometimes people will ask, like, what's in your collection. So make sure that you stay engaged in all of that. When the host usually will post the requirements, and I'm also going to be doing another one about the guidelines for the host as well. But they usually put some kind of requirements, whether it be like a Funko, a pin, a Gymsure, a Loungefly, whatever the case may be. If you sign up for a swap, that's what you're signing up for. If the requirements are listed, that's what you're going to be signing up for. Make sure those things are in the box, because your recipient is also going to be expecting, so to speak. Maybe expecting is not the best word, but those requirements should be met. So the next step is like preferences, and usually filling out some kind of preference questionnaire. The questionnaire can include like your preferences, maybe your top 3 or 5 princesses or villains or whatever the theme for that particular swap is. Make sure you fill them out and try to be as detailed as possible. I mean, you don't have to write, every single preference that you have, but your main ones. Maybe you want to fill in a collection. You're like really into Rapunzel right now, so you list her. You list a handful of others that you're looking to kind of maybe fill in some gaps in your collection. Put those in your preferences. You should also be putting in your preferences things that you don't want, as well as if there's snacks involved, any food allergies. I always list that I am sugar-free. I am diabetic, so I don't really want anything that has that sugar. I can't eat it. So, I can have a small amount of it, but sugar-free is actually, one of my preferences. There are people that have the peanut allergy or some kind of nut allergy. Make sure that you list that. And then if you receive that person, make sure you follow it. Don't send them something that they're allergic to. They're not going to be able to eat it. So, and it's just not, not of experience that no one wants to have any kind of negativity. I hesitating really using that word, even though I just used it. But they don't want to have something like that happen where they can't, they have to pass it on to somebody else. Like I said, stay engaged in the chat. A lot of chats and swaps will ask you to post an Elfster. Elfster is a fantastic wish list. You can download the app on your phone. It's a lot of fun. Myself, I'm addicted to putting things on there. And it's kind of like it's a wish list, but it's kind of like window shopping. You put it on there. If you get it, great. If you don't, it's on there. But it is a great way for the person who's buying for you to see what's on your wish list. I personally use it as and I've seen people do this too, where I personally use it as like kind of stick to that. Because if I try to list all the Gymshures, all the, stuff that's in my collection, it's going to be a very, very long preference, and it's going to take up, like maybe the full length of the chat. So, and I'm exaggerating, of course. Nonetheless, it's a great way also too. You can put up a wish list of the things that you already have. So, I've actually seen it where someone put in Gymshures I already have, and so they listed some of those things, and that way when their person shops for them, they can see, oh, okay, she already has that one, or whatever the case may be. So, on your Elfster, if you feel comfortable with doing this, make sure your address is on there, so you can see that wish list has the address. It should be the most current. Make sure, as the recipient too, or gifter, giftee, that you keep your address updated with the host. sometimes things happen. People have to move, have to maybe send to a post office box, or maybe you've just received one and so they want their stuff to go there instead. Make sure the host knows that, and then you update it in your Elfster if that's what you're using to go ahead and, tell people what your preferences are. Let's see here. I've got notes, so I'm going to be looking down a little bit to make sure I catch everything that I want to. In the chat itself, there is the date, the time, the theme, the budget, the items that are required, and a little bit of info about exactly what, like post time. What time is it? Is it Walt Disney World time? Is it Disneyland time? Make sure you write that stuff down. Sometimes these chats go on for months, and to try to get that information again, is scrolling all the way up after many conversations that may be going on in the thread. So write it down. I personally have a swap book that I use. It's just a 5-subject notebook. I write down the month, the swaps that I'm involved in. On the next page is 1 page dedicated to each one of the swaps, and when I get my name assigned, I write that down. The post date, the time, I convert it to my time, because a lot of people will say Walt Disney World time. I'm Disneyland, so I have to take that time difference into consideration. So maybe 9 o'clock your time in Walt Disney World time, but it's 6 o'clock in the morning for me. So I write down that time. I write down what I've purchased for the particular swap for my person, who my person is, what their address is, and then when I've shipped, the date that I shipped it, and the tracking number. And I will actually probably go through a little bit of that on a different video. But nonetheless, write that stuff down. The host is not going to want to continually have to post that because someone, is requesting it again and again and again. A lot of times in the title of the chat itself will have the date and the time and the theme, or at least the title. So you've got some of that information right there and then. Shop in advance. Shop early and often if you can. Watch for sales, of course. You want to make sure that you're considering shipping time, and then video time, and then editing time. There can be a time, a lot of time allotted in the process of getting the swap videotaped and uploaded on all of that stuff. So, one person who hosts swaps, and I think this is a really great guideline, says to send out your box at least 30 days in advance for local and 60 days in advance for out of the country. Is that early? Sure. But nonetheless, you have that time period to, if that box has to sit there for a couple of days because you don't have the time personally in your personal life to do it, it can do that. Or if you need time to edit because the box that you got was fantastic and it went on for a little bit longer than you expected, you'll have time for that. So keep those things in mind too when you are shopping and shipping to your person. In the chat, keep things positive and relevant. I have witnessed things that probably should not have happened in the chat that could have been probably better suited to put in a private message to somebody. It's not a problem to do that. The host is used to going to be able to have things that come up that they need to either handle or help with. If you have to bow out of a swap for whatever reason, make sure that you're telling your host as soon as possible so they can either redirect to another person. So there was an instance where someone had actually gotten out of their own swap. The person who was buying for their person had to redirect that box to the person that came into it later on. Luckily, the preferences matched pretty well. So, and then the person that was shopping actually pulled a couple of things off the new person's wish list. So it made it a very great experience for all parties involved. But think about those things. If you have to, bow out, just make sure that you tell your host as soon as possible. It's super important That way they can figure out, they don't want they don't want one person to not get a box because of it. So they can either find a second partner or to kind of fill in, or they can redirect to how they're picking everyone anyway. Next, posting the videos should be, posting your videos that are not relevant to the swap itself in the swap chat should be asked by the hostess or host prior to. What I mean by that is we do videos all year long. Say the chat is from 6 months in advance, and you're not going to be doing anything until 6 months away. And people are posting their videos that they recently did to kind of generate some kind of interest into them. Fine, if you've cleared that with the host. Some hosts or hostesses don't want their chats to be anything but chats for the swaps. So make sure you clear that with them first, and then have the hostess or you can say this was cleared with them prior to me posting this. It's just common courtesy, because if I'm looking for information, for me personally, I don't want to have to scroll for an hour, another exaggeration of course, to find the information that I'm looking for, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that's in there. And this is completely my opinion. Might get some shade for it. Bring it. It's my opinion. But there can be a separate chat that actually can be posted if enough people are interested in doing that, where you can post on a separate chat related to those parties, and do it that way. So okay, if you leave, I already covered that. Let's see. Next, budget. Usually there's a range. 50 to 75, 75 to 100, whatever the case may be. Stay in the range. At least, at the very, very, very least, meet the minimum plus. And I'm not talking plus $50. I'm talking plus, a decent amount to make it a box. My rule of thumb for myself, create a box for someone that I would like to receive myself. But at least meet the minimum. And then if there is a maximum, try not to go so far over that it's going to make anybody else in that swap feel like they wish they would have had that person because I would have got more. Now, I don't know that a lot of us really feel that way, but you don't want ill will feelings, because you went above and beyond. You can send other things or extras to that person as magic mail if you wish to. I know it's more shipping, but nonetheless, if it's pertaining to the swap, or send a note in there that says, hey, this was for your birthday. It's separate from the swap, but I'm including it in this box, and then they can do whatever they're going to do with whatever, however they want. Packing your box, you want to make sure that you want to pack it neatly and safely, so all the items get there, in good shape. But I mean, we can't take into consideration, of course, the post and what they're going to do with it. But keep that in mind, because I've had boxes that came to me that were like dinged corners, but all the stuff inside of it was packed so well that it came unscathed, thankfully. So just, try to pack it with whatever you can to make sure that the items get to your person undamaged. Decorate the inside of the box and the outside if you wish. Gift wrap or no gift wrap. That's really a personal preference. For me, I try to. I don't always do it, but I try to. But I have arthritis in my hands. So there are times where I've actually sent a box that was half wrapped and half not. So, but I always try to. It's really kind of the experience of the swap itself. It makes it more enjoyable if they are wrapped, if it's decorated inside and outside. At the very minimum, at least decorate the outside and mark it to what swap it's for. We are all involved in a bunch of swaps all year long. Some people will send their boxes out early, so when you get it, you want to make sure that you set it aside if it's not for something that you're going to be doing until, like, right now it's January, but I have, say I get one that's for April or May, and people will send them that early. So you can set it aside, you know exactly what swap it's for, you open it then, you can do your reactions in real time. Make sure that you add a card, postcard, card, something that says something, about who it's from and what it's for. At least, at the very least, if you even, like, you can send stuff to people. I have had where I've had to send to a recipient at the last minute, is a completely different circumstance. So, to where someone had dropped out and someone was not getting the box, and I was part of the hostess. I was one of the hostesses. So we sent everything Amazon. Include a card so they know exactly what it's for, because for me, I order, my Amazon guy knows me by first name. So, make sure that you mark it in some way if you choose to do it that way so they know who it's from. Let's see. Subscribe, comment, and like to the channels that are involved. So personally, I like to do that right off the bat. Subscribe to everyone that I'm not already subscribed to. It's a new way to be able to start watching some of their videos, especially if they're assigned or their name gets assigned to you, and you can start to get to know that person. Let's just be honest. We're out there for exposures, for some cases also as part of some of the swaps. So you want to subscribe to that person so they get that. You can start watching some of their videos. You can be, engaging with them, especially if you're paired up with them. And it's just kind of common courtesy. When the post dates come up, I try to do watch, comment, like the whole 9 yards on every single person's video that's involved in the swap. There will be a channel list in the description box of everybody involved. It's not really hard to go down, the whole channel list. I'm part of the year of the ear. So imagine when it's post date and there's 30 channels to watch. Watch them. If you got a 10 to 15, people swap, it's not that really hard. Set aside a couple of hours or whatever the case may be when you can, and try to get through them. Let's see. Now, this one's going to be kind of there are a lot of exceptions to the next thing I'm going to talk about, and that's posting your video when it's post date, and posting your video at the time that it's supposed to be posted for. Okay, so backtracking on that statement, the exceptions are, if you're in good health. If you're not in good health, then we don't expect that to happen. If you didn't get your box until yesterday and the post date's today, you're going to need time to go ahead and, to video edit and all that stuff. Make sure just communicate with the host that that's what's going on, so they can kind of, let the chat know, so the recipient of that is not looking for their video. And when I said earlier about it being a commitment and it being until post date and beyond, that's what I mean. So there are going to be the instances where the post office has held your package for whatever reason. It's not been received. I actually had, for Year of the Ear, I had one of my pairs of ears that was sent to my recipient stole off of her front porch. So she couldn't post that day, but I sent her another pair of ears right away, and then she also got another pair of ears from someone else when she had said something about what happened, and posted a video later. Those are the exceptions to the rule. But you want to be able to follow the post time and date as best you can. The pandemic has really caused a lot of really strange scenarios, so it's not expected, but all of that stuff aside is, just try to, as best as possible, get it on the date and time that it's supposed to be. Let's see here. Last thing, prior to sending, make sure that the address that you're sending to is correct. it's not needed to be updated. Like I said before, we should always be updating that information as it comes up. But as the person who's going to be sending, you also want to just one last time make sure that that address is correct, and send, and then you can send it off to your recipient. And then keep your tracking numbers. I didn't do this at first, and then when that error thing came up, I actually had to call the post office to try to get my old receipt so I could try to find the tracking number and find out when it was delivered. Come to find out, it was delivered 2 days after I sent it. And, but that was like, you don't want to have to try to backtrack. So I just keep a little envelope aside for the tracking numbers until those swaps are done. And then I throw them away. I also am going to start, I haven't yet, because it's a brand new year, but start sending the tracking number to the host. I think is a good practice. So the host is in on helping, like track and following through if there's anything. They can also see, it was delivered, or no, it wasn't, or it's in transit, or it still says it's in transit. Maybe we need to do something different, or whatever the case may be. I had one person who wasn't going to get a box at all. And so at the last minute, another one of the persons that was involved in the swap as well, we both sent to her Amazon gifts to make sure that she was able to open something for that time period. So those are just kind of guidelines, thoughts, whatever you want to call it, etiquette, whatever name you want to put on it. I just thought it would be kind of an interesting video to go ahead and put up for the participants, and one for I will have another one coming out as well that talks a little more in detail about starting and following through with the with one that you're creating for yourself. So I hope you enjoy. I actually thought that this would pair well, and I will mention this. Jake from Jake's Dizney Afternoon did a fantastic series called How To. He did a How To YouTube, How To Swap, and How To Community. Those 3 videos are definitely something, and I have actually watched them multiple times and taking notes because he had some fantastic points that needed to be made. So this one may kind of pair with the How to Swap one that he had posted as well, just to kind of get some guidelines and some really good info. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got something out of this. If you have any questions, comments, or anything that you thought maybe would be a good practice as well, put them in the comments down below. I would love to hear, your thoughts on some things too. Remember to keep it positive and relevant. I hope you have a great evening. Bye.